Look, I got a testimony. I gotta tell him what God did. I'm calling God the homie. He took me out of the mosh pit. I will contest the phony. Separate demons and God's kids. I gotta spread his word, so I'ma show you who the God is. The word is my weapon. I move like a general.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Walk With Me. I'm your host, JJ. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you so much for listening. You guys, if you're listening to any other podcast, there's so many. There's even so many I recently found out with the same title as this podcast. But if you listen to this one, I really do appreciate it. I hope I'm not just a run-of-the-mill kind of a podcast. I wanted to be something a little bit different. But I wanted to say I really appreciate it. I'm humbled by the amount of likes and shares we're getting. Quick shout out to my sponsors here. Yes, it's been confirmed there is a Buy Me a Coffee link on some of the podcast platforms that you have. We are in the process of slowly slowly duplicating it onto YouTube, so it's going to be a little bit before I can catch up to it. But in the meantime, thank you. This is just an audio format. The YouTube will not be anything different. It's just going to be this, just on a different platform. But I appreciate everybody. Thank you for True Bars, the intro and outro music, and Exquisite Creations with their tumblers. There was a delay in the website, but she is still on TikTok. She does have some of her stuff on Facebook and other social media posts. So it's So Exquisite at TikTok, So Exquisite Creations. Yeah, that's what it is. And we've been talking about doing maybe a merch line for the podcast, but that's neither here nor there. Now, so we're going to go ahead and jump into everything and take our walk today. The implementation of the blood sacrifice. We were talking about how Adam and Eve got evicted from the garden, and they got the judgments, and the ground got cursed. Cain decided he was going to till the ground because he had to till the ground because he had to be in the field, which is what Adam was doing because God told him to. But Abel decided he was going to tend sheep. He was going to be a shepherd. And during the process of time, Abel and Cain came together to do their sacrifice, and Cain brought fruit, which you would think would be a great idea, except the ground was cursed, which means anything that the ground was producing was also cursed. So that was a problem. So we're going to pick up right where we left off. Cain did not accept God's rebuke. He didn't accept God even offering to tell him, God was even offering him to go back and try again. If you do well, would you not be accepted by him? In other words, go back and try it again, and I'll accept this offering. But you got to go back and do it again. In my mind, I'm kind of tossed back to when I was in school. And for most of the time, I was one of the super smart kids. I think one teacher was Lord challenged me because I just turned in some mediocre work. And it was mediocre, but it was still miles ahead of the class. It was mediocre according to what I had returned. He just said, I know you can do better. Go back and do it again. And I got mad at the fact that he told me to go back and do it again. Because even though it was mediocre, I was at the time. And this is the same situation that Cain found himself in. Cain had the opportunity to go back and figure out this soul situation because apparently he had been doing it right before. Because God did not have to tell him, hey, go take this fruit, bring it to Abel. He didn't walk him through anything. So apparently this was the first time that Cain had tried this, even though he had been offering sacrifice not take it straight off the bat, knowing that you know that the world is cursed. Okay. So Genesis chapter 4. Let's take a look. The Lord God said unto Cain, where is Abel your brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? Now we hear that phrase now all the time. I ain't got nothing to do with me. But God knew better. Genesis chapter 4, 10 through 12. He said, what have you done? What's your brother's blood? Cry up in the ground. There it is again. That blood. And the significance of the blood to God. And now, Lord, which have opened up to see thy brother's blood from your hand. There it is again. That blood. Blood is very important. When thou touchest the ground, it shall not give forth fruit unto the first rain. Usually, and vagabond shall thou be. Wait a minute. The ground was already cursed. And yet, because of Cain, it got cursed. But it only got cursed in respect to Cain this time. Now, instead of where Cain was able to, and I'm keep using watermelon. I guess I'm thirsty right now. But talking on this mic doesn't make sense. But I'm using watermelon because I remember there being a picture where some book I had came across make you drink watermelon. So yeah, sorry about that. Here's the thing. Where the trees that Cain was tending, orchards, pumpkin patches, all of them were not going to give him any more yield. It was not going to give the best yield for appropriate. Where he was getting maybe 100 pumpkins out of a patch, now he's going to get 60, 30, 90, but not 100. Which is important because now Cain has to work more. He has to work harder. He has to work smarter. He has to overcome this judgment. Now he has to deal with this judgment that God gave him. And again, these same issues that happened with Adam is now Cain's going to do. Cain said to the Lord, the punishment is greater than I could bear. You've driven me out from this day on the face of the earth, and from my face I shall be hid, and I'll be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that everyone that find me will kill me. And the Lord said, well, okay, all right, hesitation. Therefore, whoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. At no point did Cain say, God, I'm sorry for killing Abel. At no point did Cain say, God, I'm sorry for bringing the wrong sacrifice. Cain was more concerned about his judgment than he was over the fact that he did the wrong thing. This is yet another pattern. So as a result of the sins, and he still refused to obey God, Cain left the Lord's presence and lived a lonely life. He took one of his sisters and wifed her, and don't look at the right now that way. It just happened that way because it was a jingle, like 5 people. So they went and built the city. They called the city Enos, and they named one of their sons. So we're going to hear about the descendants of Cain a little bit later. But this is where that story sort of ends. Unrepentant, just walking away with the judgment of God. But all was not lost. Because Adam and Eve have no children, not until they gave birth to a son, and then named Seth, that Eve said, and Adam was totally, by saying another seed, she totally is disavowed knowledge, or disavowed Cain. Because his story ended biblically. For right now, we're going to deal with his descendants later. But for right now, he's cast out. Verse 26 unto Seth. To him there was also born a son, and he called his name. And then men began to call on the name of the Lord. It was in those days that in Seth that people really started calling on the name of God. But we don't know exactly what that name is yet. Because I'm just going by biblically here. They're calling on the Lord. Adam spoke to God like you speak to a friend. So obviously Adam knew God's name. Never called on his name. After he got put out of the garden. Never called on his name. Now, one of the most interesting men, we're going to jump a little bit ahead here. One of the most interesting men who lives in the book of Genesis was Enoch. Not Enoch. He loved God and was obedient. So obedient that the Bible says, in chapter 5, verse 24, Enoch walked with God, and he was not what God took him. So he was just walking along one day, he's gone. Now, this theme is also going to carry itself over into the New Testament. And in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 5, we call the 11th chapter of Hebrews the faith chapter. It says, by faith, Enoch was translated so that he should not see death, and was not found, because God had translated him. For before his translation, he had this testimony, that he pleased God. Now, the other thing that we want to be careful with is the mention of how important the underlying theme of the family unit is, and how important it was for the family unit to be able to live. And in other words, when Cain got outside of the family unit, he wasn't living for God. But Abel, before he died, now Seth, all of his children, were all living for God. And they were doing the right thing. And Enoch was so good that God just transferred him. I mean, I know this word is not in the Bible, but basically God raptured him. Now, and then the Bible goes into a long line of begats and begats and begats and, a whole long line of people. But it talks about how Enoch was 365 years old, which isn't really old by biblical standards because his son Methuselah was 969. But no one lived past 1,000. And that's important because you have a lot of theologists that suggest that that use that to suggest that God was God saying that in this day you shall die, because a day is 1,000 years and 1,000 years is one day. You have that going on. However, Noah was Enoch's great-grandson. And this is where we're going to pick up our new path here. It's the same path, we're just going to jump ahead a few months. Enoch's great-grandson, Noah, saw that the wickedness of man was great in earth. So wicked, so lawless, that God was upset even having made man. In fact, it was one of the few things that God ever got upset about. God said in Genesis 6 and 7, and the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I created from the face of the earth, both man and beast and the creeping thing, the fowl of the air, for it is repentant me that I ever made them. God is so, please understand how angry, how bad must have been that God was so angry that he wanted to destroy everything that he took his energy and built, that he took his time and built, because God is omniscient and omnipotent. He's outside of time, but he literally took all that effort, if you will, to make all of these things, and now he's mad that he made any of it, just because man was so wicked. But there's always a but. There's always a promise in just how wicked things are, and you can kind of figure this out in your life too, that no matter how bad things can be, even how bad things you or I might have screwed up your or my life, there's always a but. And that but is this. There was one man that found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And his name was Noah. That's Enoch's grandson. I'm sorry, great-grandson. Everyone else was doing their thing, was doing them, as they call it, doing evil things. Noah believed God and obeyed him in spite of it all. And in fact, in the book of Hebrews, that same 11th chapter we talked about before, it says in verses 11 and 7, by faith Noah, being warned of God, things not seen as yet, prepared his heart, and as to the saving of his house, how he condemned the world, and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. So let's stop here for a second. We got 3 instances. What did Abraham, Seth, Enoch, and Noah all have? So we're going to stand here, Hebrews 11 chapter, and then I'll get back to it. Hebrews 11 and 6. Without basis of things, it's impossible to please God. For he that cometh to God must first believe that he is. First, believe that he is, and he is the rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Now, we just noticed having faith, or just claiming that we have faith, doesn't seem to be enough. Faith, true faith, will cause you to actually put, as they call, truth to power, or foot to action, or hands to the hammer. True faith will cause you to step out and do something that God has told you to do. And, you know, if you have faith that God will heal you, you go to the doctor can say that you have meds. You have faith that God will heal you, you take the meds. You have faith that God is going to save your kids. God is going to improve the life of your kids. You pray for your kids. This is all a matter of faith. This is all action of faith that you're doing in order to seek God for these things to happen. Having faith is not just saying, I got faith. Yeah, God's going to do it whenever he feels like it. Yeah. And then you go on and act outside of faith. I'm going to be honest with you, my listeners here. Faith is one of the hardest things to quantify when it comes to living with God. There is no faith meter. Even though the 11th chapter of Hebrews talks about everyone else's measure of faith, there is no real measure of But you got to plant it, you got to water it, you got to fertilize it, you have to put dung on top of it, you got to do things. And just a little bit, and I know we're getting close, but I have 2 trees in my backyard. I have star fruit. I have 3 trees actually. I have star fruit, a June plum, and a mango tree. These are our baby trees, and I just planted them there, and I just figured, well, it's getting into rainy season now, so I'm gonna go ahead and let that handle it. And the tree grew one little fruit. The star fruit tree grew like one little fruit, and I was happy. One little fruit, it grew. It didn't grow anymore. Then I said, well, and God told me, you know what? You know why it only grew one fruit, right? Because you just had faith it would grow a fruit, but you didn't do anything you didn't exercise that faith. So you're gonna go ahead now. So then I said, okay, well, God, fine. I'll go out here and I'll water it. I'll put mulch around the base and I'll do all that. I'll take care of it. And try to get it straightened up. And all of a sudden now I got 3 star fruit. Now that's not a lot. We're talking about a 300% increase just by doing that little bit of work. And your faith and my faith is exactly like this. You want your walk with God to bear fruit, you're going to have to do some work on the faith. You have to work with your faith to increase your faith. By the way, now the star fruit tree is like twice the size. And I think it's going to produce really quite a few number of fruit this year. So, that being said, just keep in mind that faith, we all like to run around, and we're being told, we have all these people running around talking about, oh, just happy, oh, just happy, oh, just happy. Faith without work is dead, being alone. But faith, with all of these great people, Noah, Abraham, all these, even Abel having faith, Seth having faith, they all did something as a result of having their faith. They weren't doing it to prove their faith. The faith was already there. You can't shake faith. The faith will drive you, just like hunger pains will drive you to get up and go get something to eat. Your faith will drive you to get up and go and do something that God is telling you to do. That's what faith is. And faith will generally drive you in the direction of God. So if you're trying to figure out what kind of faith you're exercising, you might want to use that as a litmus test. Faith will drive you in the direction of God. And generally, and especially in the case of Noah, as we will talk about here in our next session, will generally drive you away from everyone else. And by everyone else, I mean the world. It will generally put you in a place where you're almost by yourself and without outside hope. But that faith, that inner faith, is the inner hope for a greater hope. The inner hope for a greater hope. That's what faith will. That's the kind of position that faith will put you in. There's no sense of having a miracle if you knew that you were going to get healed anyway. Faith is the evidence of things hoped for, not yet seen, not things known for. So, and I know I kind of got off, but yeah, we're running out of time. But if you take nothing else from this podcast, faith without works is dead. Faith will drive you into a closer walk with God, and faith will separate you from the rest of the world by the rest of the world. People who are not trying. Just how it works. Alright? I love you all. Keep in mind we're doing this precept upon precept. And again, the scriptures that we went over, please make sure you're going to read them, which I hope you do. Don't just take my word for it, because I'm just some guy with a mic. You're going to read them, read the verse above, a verse below, preferably the whole chapter. Matter of fact, now probably a good time to go through Hebrews chapter 11 a few times, because they really kind of just enumerate a lot of people of faith and what they ended up doing as a result of their faith. And hopefully, I hope you learned something. I learned something just by putting the Bible study together. So I hope you learned something. I hope you get something out of it. If you do, like it, tell somebody about it, share it. I know some people kind of look at you crazy when you start talking about Bible. Yeah, just kind of drop it on their timeline and see what happens. I don't know. Who knows? It might help someone more than just by giving them a tap. All right? I love you all. See you on the next one. God bless.
Yeah. True. See, I do it for Jesus. Everything I've been doing, give me a reason. I got to spread all the words of a genius. Everybody needs to know who the leader. See, I do it for Jesus. Everything I've been doing, give me a reason.